Hello class, welcome to Unit 9, Video 6. Today we're going to look at solving rational inequalities. So we've been solving rational equations. So today your learning target's a little different. We're going to be doing inequalities. Remember that's when you have greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. Okay, so there are some steps when we are solving for rational inequalities. The first step is to solve the related equation. Okay, so that basically means just solve the equation that you are given. Step 2 is to set your denominator equation to 0 and solve because you can't divide by 0, so we have to solve for what is excluded. Okay, and we will then draw a number line. Okay, and we're going to put our answers from step 1 and 2 on the number line. Okay, so the numbers that we put on there will be from steps 1 and 2. Step 4 is to test a sample value in each interval to determine if it satisfies the inequality, and then 5 is to actually write your solution to the inequality. Okay, so a lot of steps, but let's just work through it using example 1. Okay, here is example 1. So step 1 says to solve the related equation. So what I'm going to do is just going to rewrite the equation given with an equal sign. So we have step 1, and I would recommend you write down step 1. So it's 7 minus 2 over b equals 5 over b. So let's solve this. What I'm going to do is multiply by my common denominator on both sides, which would be b. So I would have 7b minus, the b's will cancel, 2 equals, and then over here just 5. So if I solve this, I would add 2 to the other side, so I have 7b is equal to 7. And when I divide, I get b is equal to 1. Okay, so that's step 1. Step 2 says to take your denominator and set it equal to 0. So my denominator is b, so b equals 0. Step 3, write your parts from 1 and 2 on the number line. So I got an answer of 1 and 0. So I'm going to label this 0 and this one 1. Okay, it doesn't really matter. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just maybe make some little dividers. Okay, we need to test some points in between to find our answers. Okay, so step 4 is going to be to test a point. So what's a number that's less than 0? Well, -1 is. So let's plug -1 into our original equation and see if it works. So we have b equals -1. So it's 7 minus 2 over -1. And is that less than 5 over -1? So this is really 7, -2 divided by -1 is plus 2. So 7 plus 2 is 9. Is 9 less than -5? No, so that is false. So that means we do not have an answer over here. Now I'm going to check a number between 0 and 1, which would be 1/2. Okay, you could pick 0.25, you could do anything. I'm going to use 1/2 because that's what I want to use. All right, so I plug it into my equation. So I would have 7 minus 2 over 0.5, and is that less than 5 divided by 0.5? Okay, so I really have 2 divided by 0.5 is 4. So 7 minus 4, is that less than 5 divided by 0.5 is 10. So is 3 less than 10? That is a true statement, so that means I would shade here. Okay, and then lastly we should check 1 greater, so I'm going to plug in 2. b equals 2. So I would have 7 minus 2 over 2. Is that less than 5 over 2? So this is really 7 minus 1, which gives me 6. Is that less than 2.5? No, it is not. So using our number line, we get to step 5, which is to answer the inequality. So we're going to write it out. So first thing to notice, anything that comes from our denominator actually has an open circle on our number line. And if it's not equal to, which this one isn't, it's an open circle at 1. Okay, so my answer, which is step 5, is 0 is less than b is less than 1. Just writing out what I have here. Okay, that is my answer for example 1. Example 2, same idea. Okay, step 1, just solve the equation. So I'm going to rewrite it as an equal, so as an equation, not an inequality. And I would say, what's my common denominator between 4a, 8a, and 2? Well, between 4, 8, and 2, I can multiply them all to be 8. So I have to have 8a and multiply. So I would have 8a over 4a, which some of you probably don't need to write down the steps. So I'd have 5 times 8a over 8a equals 8a over 2. Simplifying, this gives me 2. My a's cancel. The 8a's cancel, and this gives me 4. So I get 2 plus 5 equals 4a. So I would add, I have 7 equals 4a, divide by 4. So 7 over 4 is a, which is also equal to 1.75. Okay, so a is 1.75. So I'm going to put that actually on my number line right away. Let's just go here. And since this is not equal to, it's going to be open circle. Okay, number 2 says to set your denominator equal to 0 and solve. So if I divide both sides by 4, a equals 0. And let's also do this one. It's only the denominators that have a variable. If I divide by 8, once again, I have 0. You cannot equal that value, so I'm going to label this 0. And since you can't equal it, open circle. Now here's where we need to test our points. So we need a point less than 0, in between 0 and 1.75, and a number greater. Okay, so here's our step 3, writing the number line. Now step 4 is our testing. Less than 0, let's do -1. So we have a. So a equals -1. Okay, if I plug it in, -1. So I'd have -1/4 minus 5 over 8. Is that greater than 1/2? Okay. You could type this into your calculator. You could also see a negative minus a negative is going to be a negative number. And is a negative number greater than 1/2? No. Okay. If you type it in, you get that this is -0.8. So sorry. -0.875. Is that greater than 1/2? No. So this is not a solution. A number in between 0 and 1.5, we check. We would do a is equal to 1. So if I plug in 1, I'd have 1/4 plus 5 over 8. Is that greater than 1/2? Okay, if you type in 1/4 plus 5 over 8, that's going to give you 0.875. Is that greater than 1/2? Is it greater than 0.5? Yes, it is. So this one works out. So that means where 1 is, I would shade. And lastly, I need to check right here. So number greater than 1.5, let's go ahead and do 2. So a equals 2. I would have 1 over 4 times 2 is 8, plus 5 over 8 times 2, which is 16. Is that greater than 1/2? Okay, so we can check on our calculator. So let's just go ahead and do that, just so we all know how to do it. So it's 1 divided by 8 plus 5 divided by 16. Okay, is 0.4375 greater than 1/2? No, it is not, so that is not a solution. Okay, just write this out. So 0.4375, is that greater than 1/2? No. Okay, so my only solution is where it's shaded. So for step 5, we would write out our answer, which is 0 is less than a is less than 1.75. Okay, that is example 2. If you have any questions before we move on to example 3 and 4, let me know. Otherwise, let's go ahead and move on to example 3. All right, example 3, step 1. Hopefully you're getting these steps down. Step 1, solve the equation. So I'm going to rewrite it. Okay, common denominator would be 6 times y minus 1. So when I multiply this, 1, so I'd have 6 times y minus 1, plus, when I multiply here, I would still have 5, and the y minus 1s would cancel, so 5 times 6. Then equals the 6's would cancel, so I'd have 7 times y minus 1. I'm going to distribute and simplify. On the left-hand side, I would have 6y plus 24 equals 7y minus 7. Now, if I solve this, I would subtract 6y from both sides, so that would give me y, and I would add 7 to the other, which gives me 31. So y is equal to 31, okay? So this is from my equation, and when I solved it, I got 31. Notice how this one has an equals to it, so this will have an closed circle, right? Because you can be it. Closed circle. So we go ahead and put that on. I'm just going to label 31. Closed circle, not open this time. All right. Step 2, take our denominator, set it equal to 0. It's only the denominator, once again, that has a variable. Add it over, so I get y equals 1. You can never equal 0 in the bottom, so these are always, always open circles. Okay, when I put this on, I know my number line's not perfect, but it's just a guide to help us. Open circle. Now I would test to the left of 1, in between 1 and 31, and bigger than 31. Okay, so here's our step 3. Step 4, we test. So we have y. Let's try less than 1. Easy one, 0. So I'd have 1 plus 0 minus 1 is negative 1, so it's really minus 5. Is that less than or equal to 7 over 6? Okay. This is negative 4. Is that less than or equal to 7 over 6? Yes, it is. So yes, so we would shade. Okay, that's our first one. We check. Now let's go ahead and check in between 1 and 31. So many options you can check. I want this to work out nicely for me, and I would say if I plug in 6, 6 minus 1 is 5. So I'm going to plug in 6. Could you have plugged in 4 and used your calculator? Yes, you could have. Okay, it will all give you the same type of answer. So I'm going to try 6. So I'd have 1 plus 5 over 6 minus 1, which is 5. Is that less than or equal to 7 over 6? So 1 plus 1 is 2. Is 2 less than or equal to 7 over 6? This is a 1.16 repeating, so is 2 less than 1 something? No. So this is not an answer. No. All right, and we have to test one more. Greater than 31. Let's just try 32. So I'd have 1 plus 5 over 32 minus 1, so 5 over 31. Is that less than or equal to 7 over 6? So this is what I'm going to use our calculator. 1 plus 5 divided by 31. Okay, that's the number it is. And then 7 divided by 6 is 1.16 repeating. Okay, so if you look, this one is actually bigger. So does it satisfy the inequality? Yes, it does. Okay. So if we want to write it out, this is really 1.161. Is that less than or equal to 1.16 repeating? Yes, so we would shade this way. Now you need to write your answer down. So this takes you back to first trimester. Okay? It's when y is less than 1, or when it's broken apart, remember it's an or, when y is greater than or equal to 31. So there's my compound inequality using or. Okay. All right, we have one last example to do. Example 4. I would recommend that you pause the video and try this one on your own and then come back and make sure you did it correctly. Step 1, solve the equation. So once again, I'm rewriting it. I would say 3, 5, and 15. I can make them all be 15. However, they both have an x, so it has to be 15x. So I have 15x over 3x minus, I'm going to do 2 times 15x over 5x equals 15x over 15. Cancel out x's. Whoops, that didn't change colors. There we go. 15 divided by 3 is 5 minus, my x's cancel. This gives me 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 5 minus 6 is negative 1 equals x. Okay, so that's my first answer, so I'm going to write it on there. Can I be equal to? No, because it does not have the equal to. So it's open circle. Now, step 2, take your denominator and set it equal to 0. Oh, that's a 0. So when I divide by 3, I get x equals 0. I'm going to do the same thing with 5x. Hopefully you're getting the idea that these will both give you 0. So it can never be equal to the denominator. So it's always open circle from what you get from the denominator. So this is 0, so I need to check to the left of -1, in between, and above. So there's step 3. Step 4. So let's try x equals -2. That's over here. So I'd have 1 over -6 minus 2 over -10. Is that less than 1 over 15? Okay. If we type this into our calculator, the left-hand side, I'm not going to do it right now, but if you do type it in, you'll get 0.03 repeating. Is that less than 1 over 15? If I put that in, that's 0.06 repeating. Okay, is 0.03 less than 0.06? Yes, so this one actually works. So we shade to the left. We check in between -1/2 and 0. Any number in between -1/2 and 0. I'm just going to do not -1/2. I was thinking ahead. I'm going to do -1/2, but because that's in between -1 and 0. So I'd have 1 over 3 times -1/2 is -1.5 minus 2 over -2.5. Is that less than 1 over 15? If you type the left-hand side in, remember this is what I plugged in, not the equation. If I type this left-hand side in, I'll get 0.1 3 repeating. Is that less than 0.06? No, this is bigger. So that does not work. And a number greater than 0, I am going to go ahead and plug in 1. Plugging in 1. So that means I'd have 1/3 minus 2 over 5. Is that less than 1 over 15? Well, if I take the left-hand side and type it in, I get -0.06 repeating. Is that less than a positive 0.06 repeating? Yes. So this one works, so I would shade to the right. And lastly, I would write out my solution. We're talking about x. X is less than -1, or x is greater than 0. Okay, so make sure you're checking everything on there. If you have any questions about this video, please let me know. Otherwise, have a great day.